So I'm not going to pretend like I am some kind of historian of Funko or anything like that, but I'm pretty well versed in the comings and goings of Funko. Mike Becker founded Funko in 1998, selling nostalgia-themed bobbleheads called Wacky Wobblers. I believe the first one that they made was the Big Boy from the restaurant. In 2002, they made a mascot called Freddy Funko, and you could get his bobblehead by joining the Freddy Fun Club, a fan club for the lovers of Funko. Funko was sold to Brian Mariotti, and if I remember correctly, I was reading an interview about Brian, and he was a huge fan of Hanna-Barbera cartoons. This is very much reflected with the items that are on the Funko web store. I also have seen pictures of the inside of their offices, and they have like a big Wally Gator and things like that. They have a huge array of Hanna-Barbera swag and Hanna-Barbera items on the Funko store for the Hanna-Barbera collectors, so check those out if that's something you're interested in. They don't make it to the shelves quite as much, but they're on their site. At the time I've known about Funko, they've been located in Everett, Washington, outside of Seattle. I believe they relocated in 2017 to a bigger headquarters, but they've always been around the Seattle area, and I don't know the Seattle area that well. While the pop vinyl figures have had a meteoric rise in popularity, Wacky Wobblers had a loyal, dedicated fan base of their own. While I don't know if they still make them, you can easily pick them up for cheap on Amazon or eBay. Denver area residents can also find them at Rocket Fizz in the Larimer Square. At around 2011, Funko began making pop vinyls. Some of the earliest licenses that they had were The Simpsons and Yo Gabba Gabba. When they expanded their library to Marvel and DC and Disney and The Walking Dead, people really started to take notice. It's around this time I became interested. As I said in my previous video, I loved that there were Marvel and DC pops that weren't just promoting movies. They made ones that weren't, only the popular ones from the movie franchises. They were made by fans, for fans, and that really endeared me to them instantly. With a giant new catalog of licenses and new pop lines, Funko seemed to be spread a little thin. I noticed around 2013 there was a very noticeable decline in the quality of the pops. I even one time got a Commander Shepard without an arm. It wasn't like it broke off, it was like it was never there to begin with. I emailed the guy who sold him to me, and he just sent the replacement out. He didn't even want the Commander Shepard back. Now I realize in 2013 is right when I started collecting them, but I did have some older ones in my collection, and they rarely had these problems. This was kind of compounded by the online retailers being excessively rough with the packages, and earlier pops with paint defects or I should say without paint defects or perfect boxes are pretty rare. While Funko hasn't been a stranger to making the San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, in 2013 they decided to make a very big push, and they made a giant catalog of exclusives that year. This really put Funko Pops on collectors' radars. However, there was a noticeable rush in getting the exclusives ready for the convention. This is especially noticeable in the Domo Batman Pops. I don't even know if I've ever even seen one that's in perfect condition. In the years after, I did notice that there was an improvement in the quality, but just keep in mind when you're collecting the earlier Pops that they're very difficult to find in perfect condition. So after 2013, San Diego Comic-Con collectors had a pretty good exposure to the Pops, but there was one particular Pop I really feel got mainstream collectors to take notice, and that was the Slimer Pop in the Ghostbusters line. Now I'm just calling it Legacy, but the thing I kept hearing was finally a Pop that wasn't just human shaped. I myself had the flower from the Plants and Zombies line, which was shaped like a flower, so I knew that wasn't the first one with a different shape, but people actually were pretty excited to have a Pop that wasn't just a humanoid shape. Ghostbusters line also had the Ecto one and an oversized 6-inch Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Even though these weren't the first attempts at these things, their popularity and success led to much more thinking outside of the box with the Pop line, meaning that that they were more comfortable in making, you know, different kinds of pops, and I think that's where that kind of stemmed from. But Funko wasn't content to just stick to pops. I remember I was a member of the Funko Fun Club, and they mailed me out a catalog in the fall of 2013, and there was some crazy things in there. In addition to the pops and the wacky wobblers, there were 3D bookmarks, plushies, boxos, tins, blocks, lamps, vinyl invaders, computer sitters, wacky wisecracks, and even USB speakers. Most of these things aren't even around anymore, but one thing is clear: they were going all in on the minifigures. Funko is certainly not the only company that was selling blind boxes. For those of you who don't know about the Funko Mystery Minis, they're small, like 2.5-inch characters in a box, but you don't know what's inside the box, so you just buy the box and you get whatever's in there. The earlier sets would have 5 or 6 different characters with 3 or 4 different poses or expressions. Now, they generally have, in the newer ones, they generally have like over a dozen characters, and some retailers even have exclusives. One of my favorites is the Disney Afternoon Minis that have about 15 different characters and 6 retailer exclusives that I know about. For the series collectors, Funko has Hikari figures, and no, I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. I do know that they mean light in Japanese, and they are based on Japanese sofubi figures. Nope, and I'm not sure about the pronunciation of that either. I really don't know much about them. Every time I research sofubi, all I get are the Funko Hikaris and a couple of Godzilla monster toys from Japan. One thing that is cool is they look really appealing, and they actually say how rare they are. Nearly every one I've seen has less than a 3,000 figure run. They're handmade, and they they have like a bunch of completely different color designs. I know what you're thinking. What's the problem with them? They're obviously pretty unique. They're really expensive. With a price point of $50 to $80, I really only have been able to afford a couple. They also don't hold their value really well. It's hard to establish a fan base when there are only a few people that can afford to collect them. They make these, but this one I'm kind of surprised about. I don't know anyone besides me that even has one. So I'm kind of surprised that they're continuing the line. Right now they have these Hikari XS figures for people who, like me, can't afford to buy the regular sized ones. They're just smaller versions of the Hikaris. And you can pick those up for under $30 usually. So that's nice. But what are my favorites? Well, I definitely have more pops than anything else. My favorites have to be the Dorbs. Heresy, I know, but hear me out. As I mentioned before, I'm not really interested in their value, and it's pretty much the only thing that I like better about the pops. That and the variety. Not every pop is available in the Dorbs form, hence why I have more. But the Dorbs are cheaper, they take up less room, and they have all the things I like about pops, like variants, exclusives, and just look how adorable they are. I love that they even have the evil characters. They have these cheeky grins. In fact, the only one I've ever seen where you can actually see their mouth and they're not smiling is Bizarro Superman. And honestly, if you don't know why this is amusing, I don't know what to tell you. As a bonus for me, they always have a much smaller production run. They're usually limited to about 5,000 units. But that's it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all next Thursday.